All right, it's the 26th of March, a beautiful Wednesday morning. Good morning, Eswatini. It's another bright and early start on the Kusile Breakfast Show. And today we have a lineup that goes straight to the heart of two of the most critical issues that are shaping our future: water and wealth. At 6:30, we dive into the life-giving force that sustains all of us. It's World Water Day, and this year's theme, glacier preservation. It is a stark reminder that indeed the fate of our planet's frozen reserves is directly linked to our water security. Now, here in Eswatini, the commemorations take on a special meaning as we mark the official opening of the Makupeleni portable water supply scheme. It is a game changer for the local community. And joining me to discuss this significance, or rather the significance of this particular milestone, will be a guest from the committee of this water committee under the Ministry of Natural Resources and Energy. All of that conversation happening at 6:30 on our first hour. And then at 7:30, the conversation shifts to the world of high-stakes investment. Eswatini has set its sights on an ambitious target, 12% economic growth per annum by 2029. Sounds rather too ambitious, but is it plausible? Is it feasible? With the launch of the Eswatini Investment Conference, the government is pulling out all the stops to position the Kingdom of Eswatini as a premier investment destination in Southern Africa. But can it deliver? What is in it for businesses? What is in it for the investors? What is in it for the people of Eswatini? We're going to unpack it all with Mr. Martin Masilela. He's the Executive Investment Promotion Manager at the Eswatini Investment Promotion Authority. So whether it's the water that sustains us or the economy that drives us forward, this morning we're tackling the issues that matter. So you want to grab your coffee or your tea or whatever it is that you start your morning with. Whatever it is that you start your morning with, grab that. It's going to be an interesting conversation, an interesting show. Also, we will have the lead of, or rather the head of Swazimed. They want to chime into something. I can't tell you much right now, but we will have a conversation with Swazimed on the show this morning. So that is one conversation you really do not want to miss, as we really might be breaking some news there with this particular development that has been making headlines pretty much since last week, getting into this week. It's one of the hottest topics in the country, and Kusile Breakfast Show has something for you this morning in conversation virtually with the chief executive there at Swazimed. Otherwise, we do have the usual schedule of our show this morning. We have Tindzaba Tesiswati, Tesingisi, sitawupopola nakulamanye amave sibukele thamba embili internationally, as well as, just right here in South Africa and other countries in the SADC region. And it is going to be a show that you do not want to miss, so sit back and relax. Kwanyalo sibuke tindzaba lethamba embili kumaphephandaba elive. Right, start uqala Times of Eswatini. Sibuke front page, the top story in the front page of the Times of Eswatini. Tensions escalate at Eswatini Med. Again, we have a conversation with Eswatini Med on Kusile Breakfast Show this morning. In this first hour, right now, this first 30 minutes of the show could be that. So do stay tuned. We might get into this conversation here where tensions are escalating. Fund seeks order to remove unauthorized security company deployed to the screen staff, clients, and they are citing fear and disruptions. Business Eswatini alleges death threats against board members. Another one, UEDF prepares for spectacular 52nd Army Day. And those graphics there further complement that headline. On another one, Reposa distances itself from PSUs, and a story developing under the topic Parlous Jewelry Theft. Zambane has been sentenced to 5 years. Calabash owner emerges. That's the front page. Stabuga, the back end of this publication. The top story there, it's Operation Fill Up Somhlolo following 10,000 fans target for finals. Ngwenyama Cup Football Culture Fiesta on April 6. Entry fee set at 50 emalangeni. Sekhuta lwandle. Akulokunye Eswatini fined 90,000 emalangeni for WC absence. It was meant to be Eswatini's big moment on the global stage, but instead the Eswatini Esports Association found itself facing 90,000 emalangeni fine. On another one, Platini has been cleared. Eswatini Daily News. The front page, these are top stories. His Majesty King Mswati III has been hailed as beacon of hope for Emaswati. He has received rave reviews for being a beacon of hope for Emaswati with the interests of the people at heart, as witnessed by the recent gracing and official launch of multi-million projects within the various communities, which greatly reduced unemployment and assured economic revitalization. Senator Isaac Makakula advocates for modern legal reforms in Parliament and government's 110 million emalangeni to save TLC from collapse. Eswatini Daily News Sport. Ngwenyama Cup final on April 6. 2 times Ngwenyama Cup losing finalists Royal Leopard will cross swords with Maiden Cup finalist Moneni Pirates. This will be in a battle for 1.4 million emalangeni at Somhlolo National Stadium on the 6th of April 2025. On another one, Bucks Bull co-hosting at Mavuso. And Baleka has been promoted to the ICC elite panel of umpires. And that's it this morning from the newspapers. Tindzaba lethamba embili siba hlola imarket sitawubuya netindzaba tesiswati.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Sotlamahle nathi indzaba tesiswati imphunga umvane Nkosi Mphathwa ithi sinqumo sekuthi lihhovisi leliphini landvunankulu libone kuyintfo lengcono kuthi-ke emajaha labekahlekisana nenfombi bese kuba nemvana akhiphe sondlo onke kuyintfo lebonakele ukuthi ingasita kwesikhashana. Imphunga umvane Nkosi Mphathwa ithi uma ngabe kunelijaha lelifuna kutihlenga kufanele liyakwenda i-DNA test. Imphunga umvane Nkosi Mphathwa ithi lokhu-ke akusilo licebo lekudla imali kepha yintfo lebangelwa simo sebusweti lesikhona. Imphunga ikuvete lokhu ngesikhathi ishukumisa kwemukelwa kwembiko wekusebenta kanye nenkhulumo mpikiswane netilinganiso temaphakelwa elihhovisi leliphini landvunankulu.
Imphunga umfane Nkosi Mphathwa yetfulele timphunga loko lihhovisi leliphini landvunankulu elikhonile kukwenda lokufaka ekhatsi luhlelo lekuhlanganisa imindeni kanye nekwakhiwa kwetindlu talabaswele kulokunye. Imphunga umfane Nkosi Mphathwa ibese-ke iveta netinhlelo letitawucinisekisa ukuthi bantfwana bondliwa boyise.
Kube beteni labangena emeneni bonakale ukuthi naloyo uthi dinyawo ngethwale ekubeni ende lokho lakwendile kulowo mntwana kaNkulunkulu lekamende kona lokho. Wachaza ke na DPM khona lapho kuleso sigaba ekuseneni kuyayikwendeke ukuthi mhlawumbe khanze ukuthi leyo ndlela ihanjwe abantu labasihlanu noma labangani ngakhi kuyaye kubithe ukuthi ke lo make sekumele futhi ayele office naka welfare kuyakhombisa ukuthi ingabe ngubani lona lo wende lokho kwaphuma lowo mntwana ukuthi akhona kondlakala.
Timphunga tibese-ke tiyaphawula ngalombiko.
Tihibe asikabi nato nasasebenta litiko la DPM
labo sisi bethu noma labantu bethu lo khanza lokuthi ubekuse ngendlela ukuthi sekunebantu abaningi labahambela indlela lokuthi Madam President kube sekuthiwa wonke lohambela indlela kumele afake isandla. Angicele nje kuuva lokuthi ingabe live sithi aliyephi nasisho kanje.
Impunga Mfanenkosi Mphathwa ibese-ke iyacacisa ngalendzaba yesondlo.
Akusho DPM ukuthi akube kanje. It's a obtaining situation le on the ground lokubonakalako ukuthi kwendeka nako khanze ukuthi lona wekunene esteke waya ka social welfare wawubika jatsite ukuthi alonhle phinze espeke waya jatsite waya khona wawubika jalela ukuthi alonhle babane kanjalo hlangano kanjalo akusuye DPM lo wathi akube kanje ukhanza ngokuthi le situation ikhona besa buka simo lesikhona ukuthi kungendeka kanjani nase kulesimo lesi.
Timphunga tibese-ke tiyawemukela lombiko. Etindzabeni kubika Sondo Mlangeni nginaThemba Shabangu naSimuva Shongwe ePhalamende.
Imphunga lizinyane uMfanenkosi Temaswati lithi-ke litiko letasekhaya selihambela ibanga libonakalako ekubhalisweni kwemaphepha ebuve etifundeni telive i-mopping exercise. Imphunga ithi lo mkhankaso uhlose kucedza abantfu labede buve. Imphunga lizinyane uMfanenkosi Temaswati ikuvete lokhu ngesikhathi yetfula umbiko welikomiti lelibuke kusebenta kwaleli tiko endlini yetimphunga.
Ishukumisa ukuthi lo mbiko timphunga tiwemukele. Imphunga uMfanenkosi Temaswati uvete loko litiko letasekhaya leliphumelele kukwenda kulomnyaka mali wahulumende wemnyaka wa 2024-2025.
Basibikela ngokusebenta kwabo kwalomnyaka lesibuya kuwo. Kwaba nemsebenzi lomuhle we-mopping exercise la khona babuka kubhalisa khona onke emaswati lo khanzakala ukuthi akazange khona kubhaliseka, and we are pretty much halfway there. Sifundzen region yaseMbabane sekwendiwe 40 wemiphakathi out of 79. Kamanzini it's 52 out of 101, of which shokuthi says halfway there. Kepha-ke litiko labika ukuthi tinkinga leli bese libhekana nato ukuthi tinkinga te-transportation ngiko lokukhanzakala ukuthi maybe sekubese sekubamba le misebenzi ayisakhona ichubekele embili. Kepha-ke siyathemba ukuthi ngekubambisana litawukhona litiko kucedza sito eradicator statelessness laveni. Lokunye litiko labika-ke ukuthi bebasebenta lendzaba yekwemukela abomakhelwane bethu lebekhanzakala ukuthi bavelela ngilesehlakalo salokulwa lebekukhona, babambisene kahle na certain organizations. Naloku-ke sekubonakala ukuthi ngathi umsindvo sowenda kuthula litiko belisebenta kanye naye UNHCR ePitoli naseMozambique ukuthi kubukede ukuthi sebabuyisela njani emuva.
Imphunga uMfanenkosi Ntfombiyenkosi lo wesekele imphunga uMfanenkosi Temaswati uvete indzaba yetinombolo letisetulu tetehlukaniso pheceleti divorce.
Kunalokudivosa lesithi asikuthandi sisive semaswati bese sekunalokho ukuthi cha singehlukana ngekuthi mhlawumbe nawe sohlalele nalomnyaka ahlalele sakubuka ukuthi kuyinto lengcono ngoba kunekuthi ukhanze ukuthi abantu sebabulelene ngoba nakhona kuyacontribute ukuthi utawuhlala nemuntu uthi uhlelele abantu abakho kanzi sohlalele kufa.
Imphunga uMfanenkosi Incenge ibonge emakhosi ngeliholide labomake. Imphunga ibese ibuta mayelana netisebenti talelitiko letimikiswe enkantolo.
Ngabe senda siphosiso sibafati balelive mengameli kungete sasukuma sidumise engwenyameni sekhute lona lwandle sibonga Sibonga lusuku lasiphe lona wekunene lwemaganu. Sibafati bakangwane sithi bayethu enwaphakathi. Sibona kuboshwa kuyanza kuleli tiko lokuthiwa ungathi kunebuganga labagangile bayaboshwa. Sibathe siyabuka nje sibathe siyavuka sibona ukuthi ngathi khona lababoshwako. Iyakhuthatana leli tiko leli lokuphoka sibona ungathi sekukhona lo sokungathi kufaka lijele. Noma singadi ukuthi kutawu bahamba kutawufwaphi but nje kuyaqinisana lokubona ukuthi ungathi ukukhona lokufaka ukuthi labagangile la kuleli veleli akube khona lokwenziwako kubo. Angathi uthi sihlala ukukhona indla ngasitshela kona kuloko nangabe khona kunene ngoba lento yinhle lento ngileli tiko lokuthi
Impunga uMvanenkosi Maswati bese-ke iyaphendvula.
Ngasho nje ukuthi kusese betemthetho lokho lokusho ukuthi ke akukhona ukuthi bebangasikhulumisa noma basitshele ukuthi kwendakalani kusese liphenyweni kahle.
Timpunga tibe setiyawemukela lo mbiko. Tindzabeni kubika Sondo Mlangeni nginaThemba Shabangu naSimuva Shongwe ePhalamende.
Litiko letekwatisa tekuchumana nebuciko libambe umhlangano sikole netinhlangano libambisene nato kutawucola ke umkhombandlela i-NWSET lobuke kungenela tifundvo tebuchwephesha STEM. Lobuke luhlangothi lwetekuchumana etiko letebuchwephesha Dr. Rejoice Maseko uthi live leSwatini liyingxenye yemave lahamba embili kaSADC ekwakhiweni ke kwetinhlelo letikhutsata bomake nemantfombatane ukuthi bangenele lolu hlangothi.
Lobuke lihlangothi lwetekucwaninga etiko letebuchwephesha Dr. Rejoice Maseko uthi inhloso yalo mkhombandlela kwakha tinhlelo letawukhutsata bomake nemantfombatana kutsi bangenele tifundvo nemsebenti losehlangotsini lwete-science, tebuciko, bunjinela kanye nekubala.
To address the problem ye shortage yabomake uhulumende asekasukume wa-coordinate lama activities lendiwa ma-organizations lawangwane uyati kuna Faweswa uyati kuna WIMENG and umsebenzi lomhle kakhulu but uhulumende kufanele awa-coordinate namhla ke sitawubuka le strategy lesesidevelopiwe kuthi ngabe kungiloku lokushiwo live lakangwaneni kungiloku lokushiwe eMaswatini kungiloku lokushiwe ngilama organization lasavele amsita uhulumende alisita live lakangwane kuthi akhulumise tindzaba tabomake ka STEM.
Mengameli we-Eswatini National Charter on Women in STEM, Professor Nonhlanhla Sukati, ukhutsate bomake nemantfombatana kutsi akusukumele kwenta imisebenti yebuchwephesha.
One of the things we should go against lama beliefs as society ukuthi science or STEM is not for women. There is no brain for a man, there is no brain for a woman. We all have lobes namalakzana lafanako. Women should just tell themselves ukuthi we are all equally capable of tapping in. In fact, I usually say women are even at a better position. Ngoba siyakhona lokubeketela. Siyakhona kwenta tintfo when emadoda asheshe advube ahambe. So for us as women, we should encourage girls not to run away from STEM.
Lo mkhombandlela uhambisana nemigomo yaka-SADC lebitwa nge-Charter for Women in Science, Engineering and Technology lowasayinwa live leSwatini nga-2018. Lobika-ke emsakatweni titfombe eSwatini TV nguSethabile Mamba, anaSondo Mlangeni ezulwini.
Kutebalwe nekweswelakala kwemisebenzi bantfu labasha labehlukene basebentisa emakhono abo kude baphilise. Lokubonakele emtapeni welwati embabane lapho khona luhlangothi lwemisebenzi yetandla lingephansi kwelitiko ke letemabhizinisi nekutsengiselana limeme badwebi ekutheni bakhone kukhangisa ngemisebenzi yabo yetandla.
Nanoma lakangwane linesibalo lesisetulu sentsha leswele amathuba emisebenzi bakhona labo labasebenzisa emakhono abo ukutiphilisa. Labanye balabamfula abasha babonakele bakanekise nemidwebo yabo naloko labakwakhe ngetandla tabo emtapeni welwati embabane. Musa Nkosi Dlamini longumdwebi uthina noma anesitifiketi waphelelwa ngumsebenzi lokwabita ukuthi asebenzise ingqondo ukude aphile.
Lokhu nje ngiyalo sengihleti nje angahlali but nje solokhona nami lengwendawo lena lena lokungibambisako nasikipha nje lengisigcokile nami ngiyathi nje ngispenda impahla amateki kuhlukahlukene lengibambisa ngakho ukuze ukuthi ngikhone nami kuhambisa lo mdwebo embili.
Sibusisiwe Gametse yena lo ngumfungo uthi likhono lakhe yintfo layitsanza ebuncaneni noko kube sekumvulela ematfuba ekuhambeni kwendlela.
Lokungisebentele mine up until now kakhulu ekutiphiliseni kwami ngetemakhono ngule handcraft. Bekusifiso sami kakhulu ukuthi ngigcine ngikhona ukuthi nayo ngatiphilisa ngayo.
Sibusiso Makagula lobuya etiko letemabhizinisini ekuthengiselana uthina noma lihlangothi lwemakhono lisacathuta kuleli. Labenta imisebenti lehlukene kufanele babhalise batiwe kute imisebenti yabo itomakethwa kahle.
Sizama kwenda i-initiative yokuthi bonke labenda i-artwork baphume emakhaya babuye bade kusebenza kanye nathi. Sithe last wendela ukuthi nakwendekile banenhlanhla labanye bayathengelwa sisesela labanye ukhanza ukuthi bawathole ama customer latawuthi afuna into etsitela abafuna ukuthi babakhele dona bese sebayadithenga. Bantu labadwebako sisi bakhona sekuthi nje esikhathini lesiningi ukhanze ukuthi umuntu uyadweba asadweba atidwebele ekhaya ukhanze ukuthi kude lapho khona ukhanza sekufuna bawuthengisa khona baphindze bamarket. EmaSwati liqiniso lelikhona lamanye sekayayisupporta i-art industry sekayatithenga letiye tinto.
Labantu labasha bathi lokubakhalisa kakhulu kulohlangothi ukuthi letinye titolo tidla emandla abo ngekuthenga imisebenzi yabo ngemali lephansi bese takha inzuzo lephinziwe ngekudulisa. Etindzabeni kubika nothile Sithole nginampendulo Gumbi sisembabane.
Libandla lelibuke kunakwa kwetibi eSwatini Institute of Waste Management seyibambe umhlangano sikolo wekubuketa tinhlelo letikhutsata kulahlwa nekusetjentiswa kwetibi eSwatini Waste Management and Circular Economy Seminar. Tinhlangano letahlukene beti ungenelekele umfundza sikolo lokufaka ekhatsi International Solid Waste Association, which is the African Region Chapter, kanye nelibandla lelibuke kunakeka kwemvelo eSwatini Environmental Authority.
Lo mhlangano sikolo uthethe emalanga lamabili kanti bekangephansi kwesiqubulo lesithi Enhancing Sustainable Waste Management Practices. Sihlalo we-International Solid Waste Association, African Region Charter, Mpendulo Gininza uthi eMaSwati adzinga kufundza ngetindlela letinsha tekusebentisa tibi.
Namuhla ke besibuka kuStive lakangwane lingenta kanjani ukuze limanage i-waste yalo kahle. Liphindze futhi licale manje lingathuthuki ngokuthi lithenge bese liyalahla. Keja libuke ukuthi masithenga sakha singaphindze sikusebenzise njani, siphindze sikulahle njani leli sikusebenzisako. So that bantu baphile kangcono, phindze sibe nemisebenzi njengoba sathi sinemisebenzi selikhuni, sakhe imisebenzi lemisha ledzinga boso science letingcondvo.
Sikhulumi lesibuya eNyuvesi yase Cape Town, Dennis Kalumba, sikhutsate live kutsi litehlukanise tibi, i-recycling, kute umonakalo ungabi ngilomnengi.
Waste can become a resource if we separate it from the source. As soon as we begin mixing it, then it can easily become a very dangerous material, a hazard.
Kalumba uthi live leSwatini alibuke tibi njengemvo lemcoka lengathuthukisa iphindze isindzise timphilo temaswati. Indlela lelula yekwenta loku kutsi nawulahla tibi utihlukanise ngekutsi tiyini, tiyabola noma tiliplastiki. Umcondzisi wetemvelo ebandleni lelibuke temvelo Mxolisi Maphanga uthi tibi tingaba indlela yekwakha imali. Kulomhlangano bebabukete nekutsi kulamanye emave tibi tiphatfwa njani.
So kuyadingeka ukuthi sibe nale behavior change. Siyadinga phindze ukuthi sibuke thina imithetho ngesilungu bathi le enabling imithetho letawukhona kwenta abantu bathuthukise impilo tabo ngale tibi. Kube lula ngisho la mthethweni kube nalama incentives noma kube nabonsumbulwane lokuvele babhaliwe bakhona la mthethweni cha wathatha tibi watiletha kimi khona lokuthola.
Imithetfo lebukete indzaba tekulahla nekusebentisa tibi ngendlela lengiyo ifaka ekhatsi National Environment Management Act kanye ne Local Government Act. Lobika kwemsakatweni wetithombe iEswatini TV nguSethabile Mamba anampendulo Gumbi kumathapha.
Basakati nebabhali betindzaba labahlukahlukene labangeneleke umhlangano sikolo lohlanganiswe ngumlawuli wetekuchumana i-Escom ngetekusakata. Basi tinkhundla tekuchumana tibanika insaya kwekuthi banakusise ngeliso lelikhaliphile imilayeto labayetfulela sive. Labasakati bakuvetela lokhu kulo mhlangano lochubekako ehhotela le-Hilton eMbabane.
When it comes to timvo lekufaka ekhatsi ema-ethics or umgomo walomkhakha wetekuchumana umkhakha wetemtsatheli umlandzela njani ngaso sonke isikhatsi.
Sinebele tubasibise ukuthi mhlambe-ke imvo le kakhulu ukuthi nasacala zingenehlelwe kumele zingene ngemfufo le mizuzwana yekucala the first 15 seconds kumele ngasho kwangena nesicafuni.
Sitawube sikhona kubuka mhlawumbe letinye tintfo ngalamanye imehlo futhi sibone ukuthi singakhona kukubika noma kukwatisa emaswati ngendlela labatawukhona kukuva ngawo futhi nabo bakhona kusitakala ngakho.
Siyabona ukuthi okay umlaleli asimshiyi ngemuva noma ngabe senda in sikhumbule ukuthi kunemlaleli ekhaya kunembukeli ekhaya lokunguye lesimendela lelihlelo. So ungenela ngendawo lesibili umhlangano sikolo wechushisa abasakati ngentuthuko kutekusakata. Lo mhlangano ungenelwe tinsatheli neti-70 letisetikhundleni emisakatweni yakuleli. Umhleli wetindzaba emsakatweni wemoya Marvin Gwebu ukhuthata ukuthi tinsatheli tikwati kuhlukanisa imanga nemaciniso etindzabeni ngaphambi kokuthi tibhale.
Kumedia nyalo kungene kakhulu i-social media lesiyabanga lokuthi netinsatheli nato letingathi ti-traditional titikhanze tine-pressure yokuthi tifuna kubamba le pace leyenteka ngale social media. Sibakhumbuta ke lokuthi le-training ikhumbuta lokuthi le pressure kona noma ikhona but wona njengensatheli lececeshekile le social media ufuna ukuthi wente shows ukuthi sonke isikhathi sitindzaba lotikhiphako ti-verified ti-balance la kusiyo i-hearsay.
Lobukete kumaketha emsakatweni wetithombe eSwatini TV nomcebo Mpamali uthi kumcoka ukuthi basakati nebabhali betindzaba ngekwehlukana kwabo baba yingcenye yalomfundza sikolwa kute kuvunuliswane ngetinguquko lesetikhona kulolu hlangothi.
We know when you're talking broadcasting, it is one industry that is evolving every day, and we need to catch up with the current trends that are taking place, internationally. Domestically, we need to be able to be seen. We are delivering proper content. We are making sure we know our story, and as far as broadcasting is concerned.
Mpamali uthi lo mhlangano ufike ngesikhathi lapho kunekwanza kwebabhali labatimele nebuchwephesha lobusezingeni noko nguleyo naleyo ntsatheli itawati ukuthi naseyibuyela emsebentini kubhekeke ini kuyo. Etindzabeni kubika nothi lethole nginaThemba Shabangu seMbabane.
Endzabeni temidlalo ingwenyama seyibusisela ilanga lamhla tisitfupha kulenyanga letako njengelanga lemancamo yendzebe engwenyama cup yalonyaka. Lokhu kumenyetelwe ngusihlalo wayo indzebe engwenyama cup uMvane Nkosi Hlangabeza umemeteleke emhlanganweni nebetindzaba enkhanini.
Ingwenyama imbube yemhlaba Mswati wesithathu bengunene uthuma libandla bokuthi uthumela libandla ukuthi alibikele tikhulu libikele umhlaba wonke wakangwane bonke labatsandza temidlalo tihlobo tethu tonke kumbe mhlawumbe nakumakhelwane lebahlombe mhlawumbe basivakashela kanti nakuphi kuphi lebangatsandza mhlawumbe kuta ukuthi basonzele batojabula nemaswati estadium ukuthi mhla tisithupha kambe kuye Mabasa estadium lapha kaSomhlolo sengilapho kambe kawubonakala khona ukuthi lone nhlanhla yekuwina lo mdlalo ngumuphi ngibani usho njalo ke Mswazi omnyama ngoba luthula odunga endzaba empelebeleni Mswazi bethe isidla besifaka umgobo onombondo kawungena esikhuchini ungena amagabelweni esinyathi uyimbubo uyabaleka udla amadulo esinyathi unaphakathi ayethe
Mvane Nkosi sithanda nje kubonga kakhulu nalisuku lwanamuhla
lapho khona besingahlangana khona kutowuva umlayeto lophuma kubayethe ngalomdlalo wethu weNgwenyama Cup. Lesingakusho nje mvane Nkosi ukuthi siphelele la singilethe inhlangothi vele lebetsoloti khona kuchubeka nalomsebenzi weNgwenyama Cup lokufaka ekhathi ihlangothi lwaka culture phinze nelihlangothi lwebhola.
Njengaloku langa sisilithole ngaba kubikela wona umhlaba ukuthi imali emarketeni kutaba ngu50 emalangeni egedeni ngaleli langa lalomdlalo. Imidlalo kemvana Nkosi vele itawucala kusukela ngensimbi yesiphohlongo nakuvulwe emagede. Lesikhathi ukuthi sivele sisheshe sifike sitokhona indzawo sithole indzawo yokuhlala kahle sibukele singasho ukuthi hawu siyobukela ama-finals. Ama-finals onke kusukela ngale nsimbi yesiphohlongo mvangisi kutabe sekucala ama-finals. Kuye kubomake kuye kubo-culture kuphinze kubuye nayo le final yebhola Mntwana Nkosi le nayo lengingasho nje ukuthi sinemacembu lamabili i-Royal Leopard neMoneni Pirates lesitabe siwabukela Mntwana Nkosi.
Inhlangano ledlalisa ibhola yabomake kuleli Eswatini Women Football Association ithi iyayisebenta indzaba yetinkhundla takuleli letingenawo ke magumbi ekugcokela pheceleti ema-dressing room. Ngekusho kwaNtando yeNkosi Hlatshwako lobuke kusebenta kwalenhlangano uthi lesimo sebadlali akusiso lesikahle ngoba babonakala bagcokela ebaleni kanti lokho ke kuyasehlisa sitfundi sebhola yakuleli. Sitephetsa kanjalo ndzaba tetfu tesiswati lomhla ekuseni sitawubahlola etimakethe sibuya sicocisana na Peter Samora Simelane masibuya ke etimakethe neSwaziland.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba research bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna sente ukukhicita lokusembili.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
Welcome to Eswatini Lifestyle. This is your ultimate guide to the entertainment, to the lifestyle and the culture of Eswatini.
Eswatini Lifestyle. Eswatini Lifestyle.
Eswatini Lifestyle.
From 6:30 to 7 p.m. On Eswatini TV, Sibuko Semaswati.
On Eswatini TV, Sibuko Semaswati.
It is important every now and then to check, am I still in the receiving hand of God, or am I in the receiving hand of the lies from the enemy?
Salvation is free because Christ paid for everything, and that's true. But discipleship will cost you everything.
Love each other as if your life depends on it.
As a canvas reflects the nature of a personality or an artist, so creation teaches us about who God is.
We are made great by becoming small. We are exalted when we're humble.
Welcome back to the program. Sithembisile ke nakuqala lihlelo ukuthi sitawuxoxisana na Swazimed lomhla ekseni khona ke lafuna ukuveta Peter Smelane uyasijoyina lomuhla ekseni virtually via a video link ka Zoom. Ufuna nje kusicathathela kancane ngeannual general meeting lekubheka ukuthi ke ibe khona sipha nema dates. Mpembe sikuvusele emnguni lihlelweni kusile breakfast show. Ngabe umlayeto lo sipha wona lomhla ekseni uthini?
Yes, angindivusele kwaSwazi TV breakfast show. Umlayeto lengifuna kwendlulisa nje ukuthi ngikhumbude emalunga ethu ukuthi lamuhla iAGM iyaqhubeka kuma shareholders. Ilapha eHilton Hotel iqala nga 2 p.m. Sicukutela emalunga ukuthi afike without fail because le AGM imqoka kulapho sibatholela khona ema-report lokuthi sisebenze njani kwaSwazimed sibanikete nema-update about the current affairs lokuthi nje kwentekani kaSwazimed so that batokwazi lokuthi yini lokwentekako yini expecteke kubo siqhubeke siyembili sibatshele nalokuthi sitawusebenza njani kusuka nyalo siyembili.
No, thank you. If you will nje mnguni uphinze ugcizelele tikhathi nelocation.
Sikhathi insimbi yesibili lamuhla eHilton Hotel ila imbabane nje khathi edrobheni.
Ngonisibonga kakhulu isikhathi sakho lomhla ekseni sethembe umlayeto uvakele.
Siyabonga.
Peter Smelane Swazimed uteka indzaba ye-annual general meeting la gcizelela ke ukuthi imcoka kakhulu ukhutsata ke malunga ukuthi avele 2 p.m. lomuhla embabane sibahlola emarket sitabuya sichubeka nehlelo.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba-researche, bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kumula.
nathi kufuna senze ukukhiqiza lokusembili.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
Countries are eliminating diseases all over the world.
In fact, in the last 5 years alone, 44 eliminations have been confirmed by WHO.
There is one disease that, because of a global effort, no one can get anymore. Do you know which one it is? If yes, please write it down in the comments and we'll talk about it in this episode. We are talking about disease elimination today. What does it take to eliminate a disease on the ground? And what needs to happen before WHO can confirm that a disease has been eliminated? We are talking to Dr. Jerome Solomon. Welcome, Jerome.
Welcome, thank
Jerome,
you.
what are these diseases that have been eliminated in the past 5 years?
So many diseases, like tropical disease, have already been eliminated. 50 countries, for example, already eliminated at least one neglected tropical disease. So that's a huge success, and because it's a very heavy burden for the population. Malaria, 55 countries already eliminated malaria, thanks to all the tools that are available. Vector controls, insecticides, bed nets, chemoprophylaxis, treatment, and now we have 2 vaccines to protect children. Important point, how we want to protect, for example, pregnant women transmit infections to their babies of HIV, hepatitis B, syphilis. We are working with many countries to eliminate this vertical transmission of very important disease. And something that maybe a lot of women don't know, we can prevent cervical cancer thanks to vaccination. You know, we have a lot of examples, and we are very, very hopeful that we will eliminate 32 diseases in the next decades.
So what needs to happen on the ground for a disease to be eliminated and for WHO to confirm that it has indeed been eliminated?
When we say elimination, it's eliminating a disease as a public health problem, as a public health concern in a region or in a country. It's a huge work because we need a strong political commitment coming from the head of state and ministries, of course. WHO is helping a lot in terms of technical assistance and guidance. We are working, for example, with education department, with agriculture department, with environment, because it's a global health, it's a One Health approach. And then the local level is the most important one, because we need to have the villages, the chiefs of the villages, the communities involved and engaged. We need also NGOs, we need the strong voice of people with lived experience. We need the young people to be also very committed to explain, to share their experience, to adapt the tools to all the populations, because we need to work without any stigma, without any discrimination, and we need all the populations to be fully engaged. We have a very important report to WHO, and then WHO can certify. Take a very concrete example, the polio eradication campaign. We need all the populations to be vaccinated. So it's very important because we are very close to eradication of polio. We have to keep in mind that the efforts should be strong, and we never stop surveillance and having in mind that this virus could be back.
So when we eliminate polio, does that mean it'll be like smallpox, gone forever?
So it's important to remind that smallpox is the only human disease that has been eradicated. It was in 1980, so it was 45 years ago, and we are still trying to eradicate a second disease, maybe Guinea worm or polio.
Jérôme, what can individuals and communities do to support disease elimination?
They can do a lot. Sometimes we could say, well, neglected tropical disease or some of these diseases, I'm not concerned because I am very far away, I'm 1,000 kilometers away, I am living in a rich country that is not affected, which is a wrong idea, because it's like a fire. You could say, well, the fire is far away from my house, I don't need to call the fireman, but in fact, you could wait, and then the fire will affect your house. So having this global behavior, meaning we are all committed, we are all affected. I think even individuals in rich countries could really convince their government that we need a global health architecture, that we need a global health surveillance, and we need a global commitment to fight communicable disease and tropical diseases. You can be strong ambassadors of public health, sharing messages, teaching people, reaching the unreachable of your communities. We are living on a very small planet, it's a small village. We all have a role to play.
Thank you, Jérôme. That was Science in 5 today. Until next time, then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stick with science.
Kwelo muhle siqhubeka nalo hlelo ikusile breakfast show. Kukhumbuta nje ukuthi sicetsa ukuxoxisana na Peter Samora Simelane lo khulumele ke iSwazi Med. Ufake nje sicelo noma ke kukhumbuta malunga akhona kuSwazi Med, ma members ekuthenini banemhlangano lomkhulu lomuhla uma kubumbana insimbi yesibili emini 2 p.m. Central African Time. Mhlangano ke annual general meeting la vete kutsi utawuba Hilton Garden Inn lapha eMbabane hotel, one of the rooms laba hostela kuyo ke imihlangano eMbabane. Gcizelela nje ukuthi emalunga abambe isikhathi ugcizelele ke ukuthi ngumhlangano lomcwa kakhulu lo setha iagenda ne-way forward ekuthenini batawuchubeka basebenze kanjani bayiSwazi Medical Aid Fund. Gcizelela nje ukuthi it's 2 p.m. Central African Time. Location is Hilton Garden Inn eMbabane. Umlayito ke ukhoshwe nguPeter Samora Simelane lo representa yona iSwazi Med. Ngale kwaloko sichubeka nalo ke luhlelo lwethu sitawufuna kubuka leto leti hamba embili kula manye emave, particularly tindzabeni ke tetimpi letikhona kula manye emave, the geopolitical issues and geopolitical tensions. Israeli ke hostage le beyisolo hostage khona Israel, Eli Sharabi lo tshele Security Council ekuthenini labo bebambambile eGaza. Ubeke ngesingisi wathi they would eat many meals a day from the United Nations aid in front of us, and we had never received any of it. Uthi ke bebadla kudla embi kwabo bona bangabaniketi lutho. Bese ke uyaveta ukuthi Hamas eats like kings while hostages starve.
Members of the Security Council, thank you for the opportunity to brief the Council regarding the humanitarian situation faced by the remaining hostages in Gaza. I would like at the outset to recognize Mr. Eli Sharabi and his unimaginable experience of pain and his remarkable resilience in the face of such immense loss. I extend to him my condolences for the tragic loss of his dear family, wife, 2 daughters, and a brother. I pay him, all hostages, living and deceased, and their families and loved ones, my deepest respect and support. I again extend my deepest condolences to all the bereaved families who lost their family members and loved ones during and after the horrific attack by Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups in Israel on 7 October 2023. The United Nations continue to unequivocally condemn the appalling acts of terror that took place on 7 October and continued holding of hostages in Gaza. Nothing can justify the intentional killing, torture, sexual violence, and destruction. Entire families murdered, burned in their homes, taken hostage. The events of that horrific day will not be forgotten. The participation in Security Council meeting of surviving hostages and their heart-wrenching testimonies and many months of agony serve as a stark reminder, but also as a crucial symbol of endurance and hope for those still waiting to see their loved ones back home. Since the attacks, the Secretary General and other senior UN officials have regularly met with the families of hostages and have been deeply moved by their stories and by the torment and anguish they have endured. Madam President, the ceasefire and hostages release deal that took effect on 19 January offered a glimmer of hope and respite by reuniting 25 Israeli hostages with their loved ones and returning the remains of 8 deceased hostages who were killed on 7 October or while in captivity to their families. Their release and return were sadly also a moment of great anxiety, as most of the living hostages were paraded in front of crowds, and the coffins of the deceased, including those of 2 young children who were killed in captivity, were displayed publicly by Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups during appalling ceremonies that violated international law. The United Nations has repeatedly condemned the parading of coffins containing the bodies of dead Israeli hostages and public displays accompanying the release of living and deceased hostages, including statements made under duress. As of today, at least 59 hostages, alive and deceased, including Eli's brother body, Yossi Sharabi, are still being held captive by Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups. The testimonies of those released provide terrifying accounts of their captivity, including physical and psychological torture, sexual violence, and deprivation, indicating that those left behind continue to suffer in horrific conditions, exposed to trauma and suffering since their abduction. The hostages must be released immediately and unconditionally. Until their release, they must be allowed to receive visits and support from the International Committee of the Red Cross, and they must be treated with dignity and respect in line with humanitarian principles. Madam President, the resumption of hostilities on 18th of March adds further despair and uncertainty for those remaining hostages, their families, and their loved ones. This resumption of hostilities, amidst significant Israeli airstrikes in Gaza, has also been devastating for the civilian population in the Strip. Hundreds of Palestinians have been killed, including women and children. Since the resumption of hostilities, one United Nations Office for Project Services, UNOPS, staff member has also been killed and several have been injured. Commissioner General of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency Lazzarini also informed that in the past few days, another 5 UNRWA staff have been confirmed killed. I reiterate that civilians must be protected, including personnel. The rights and dignity of all those affected by the conflict, whether in Israel, the occupied Palestinian territory, or elsewhere, must be respected and protected. We call on all parties to uphold their obligations under international humanitarian law and international human rights law. The return to hostilities threatens all civilians in Gaza. I echo the Secretary General's call for the resumption of serious negotiations for the ceasefire to be respected, for unimpeded humanitarian assistance to be re-established, and for the remaining hostages to be released immediately and unconditionally. With every passing day, we move further away from the objective of returning the remaining hostages safely to their homes. This was also very clear from the rescued hostages, Ms. Noah Argamini's remarks to the Council last month, where she told us that every moment under captivity was lived in danger. The resumed hostilities in Gaza, compounded with the lack of access and rapidly deteriorating humanitarian situation, are exposing the remaining hostages to constant danger and life-threatening conditions. As EU Undersecretary General Fletcher briefed you earlier this week, a renewed ceasefire is the best way of protecting civilians in Gaza, in the occupied Palestinian territory, and in Israel, releasing hostages and detainees and allowing aid and commercial supplies in. We remain steadfast in our commitment to protecting human rights, defending humanitarian principles, and supporting all efforts that promote peace, stability, and a more hopeful future for all people in the Middle East. We are also convinced that the only path to durable peace will be achieved when Israel and Palestine live side by side in peace and security, in line with international law and relevant UN resolutions, with Jerusalem as the capital of both states. The United Nations stands ready to do all it can to support the parties in reaching that objective, and it will continue to do all it can to support an end to this suffering. Once again, I reiterate the Secretary General's deep concern for this conflict's unbearable impact on the victims and his urgent call for the immediate and unconditional release of the hostages. Thank you, Madam President.
All right, let's go for that break. Sitawubuya siqhubeka nehlelo masinyane.
Tuberculosis is in the news, but not for the right reasons. A severe resource shortage is threatening the global response to end TB, and the disease is appearing in places where people had forgotten that it existed. Is the world on the brink of a global TB crisis? We are talking about a millennia-old disease that the world has not been able to end. In fact, in the 5 minutes that you will watch this Science in 5, 11 people would have died of tuberculosis. Our expert today is Dr. Teresa Kaseyeva. Welcome, Teresa. Teresa, I heard something that I was also not aware of, and it surprised me that a quarter of the world's population could be infected with TB and not even know it. Could you explain that? How concerned should we be?
You are absolutely right, Vismita. The world doesn't seem to recognize how widespread TB bacteria is. An estimated 1 in 4 people globally have been infected with TB bacteria, and yet not many of them realize their risks. While only 5 to 10% of people infected with TB will develop active disease, that's more than 10 million people falling ill every year.
So, Teresa, TB is a highly infectious disease, right? It's airborne, it spreads through air. Is there a cure? What's the treatment? And how do we diagnose it?
TB is in fact curable disease, but it requires completion of treatment. It would take several months, from 4 to 6 months of treatment with a combination of antibiotics. And even the most challenging, difficult forms of drug resistance, type tuberculosis, could be successfully treated. We have much better options available now. We have shorter, fully oral injections-free and more effective treatment now available. While tuberculosis affects primarily lungs, it could affect also other parts of our body, bones and joints, skin, kidneys, and even brain. Tuberculosis could be successfully treated, but the essential condition is early detection using rapid molecular diagnostic tests, including for the detection of drug-resistant tuberculosis.
Teresa, how can we protect ourselves and our loved ones from TB?
Protecting ourselves and our loved ones starts with awareness, early detection, and treatment. Consult your physician if you see symptoms like prolonged coughing, fever, weight loss, especially if you've been in contact with someone diagnosed with tuberculosis recently. This is especially important if you are belonging to one of so-called risk groups, like children, people with immunocompromised systems, people with HIV/AIDS and diabetes, and undernourished.
So, is the world really on the brink of a TB crisis?
In short, yes. Tuberculosis is the world's deadliest infectious disease. Remember, tuberculosis is a disease of poverty exacerbated by stigma, conflict, and migration.
Teresa, why should the world invest in TB, and why is that more important now than ever?
Investing in TB response is not only a global health issue, it's social, economic, and global health security imperative. Tuberculosis devastates economies. It affects people in their most productive ages. It increases significantly health care costs. It drains workforce. Unfortunately, millions of people with tuberculosis still don't have access to the life-saving treatment due to the chronic and significant funding gaps. For the first time in more than over a century, we have 16 vaccines candidates in the pipeline, and we know that vaccines could become game changers in the fight against TB. That's why urgent investments in TB research are required. Strengthening TB programs actually improves global pandemic preparedness. TB is an urgent crisis, but one we can end if we act now. The cost of inactions is measured in lives, and we can't afford to lose any more.
That was Science in 5 today. Until next time then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stick with science.
Welcome back to the program. You're still watching Kusile Breakfast Show. This is the Tuesday edition. Earlier, we had Peter Samoras Milane on the program, on the show rather, speaking on the annual general meeting that he announces to be at 2 p.m. at the Hilton Garden Inn Hotel. But seemingly it clashes with an article by the Times of Eswatini, and we will display that article from the Times of Eswatini and perhaps chime into, really what is being pronounced by this article, which has the headline, Eswatini Med Seeks Urgent Court. We read this article and we can, reach the conclusion that the developments that are surrounding Eswatini Med highlight the complexities that can arise in corporate governance, particularly in institutions that play a critical role in people's lives. Now, at the core of this situation is an internal leadership dispute that has now reached the courts, with both sides seeking clarity on decision-making authority and the best path forward for the organization. Now, the presence of security personnel, the legal challenge, as well as the public statements from different stakeholders are all pointing to an issue that requires careful resolution through due process, as well as, adherence to governance principles. Now, stability and confidence in institutions like Eswatini Med are paramount, and it is in the best interest of all parties, board members, employees, fund members, as well as the broader public, that a resolution is reached in a manner that upholds transparency, legal integrity, and organizational stability. Now, given that this matter is now before the courts, as this article by the Times of Eswatini cites on this article this morning, the most prudent approach, one would argue, is to allow the legal process to unfold while ensuring that communication remains clear and aligned with proper governance structures. Ultimately, what matters most is ensuring that the interests of fund members and the stakeholders are protected and that confidence in the institution remains intact. It's a developing story. More will still, will develop as the days go by. Hopefully, by tomorrow or by the end of the day, we do have a more comprehensive, report as to some of the events that are unfolding in court and, what Peter has announced this morning on the show. We can't really make a stance on it. All we can do is wait and see how these events unfold. But what is important is that all the interests are protected. Board members, funding members, as well as the broader public, which is you, as well as the Swazimed clients. That's it. We continue with the program now. We look at our English news. Senator Prince Mpatwa says that the decision to compel all men who have been intimate with a woman to pay child support was deliberate. The senator says it is only men cleared by paternity test results who should be exempt from paying child support. Senator Prince Mpatwa explained that this measure is not intended to frustrate anyone, but to address the issue of failure to take responsibility. Senator Prince Mpatwa made these remarks when he moved that Senate adopts the report of the Portfolio Committee of the Deputy Prime Minister's Office on the debate of the Deputy Prime Minister's Office 2024-2025 Annual Performance Report and the budget estimates for 2025-2026.
Kuba beteni labangena emeneni bonakala ukuthi naloyo usigidinyawo ngethwale ekubeni ende lokho lakwendile kulowo mntwana kaNkuluNkulu lekamende kona lokho.
Senator Prince Mpatwa, when moving that senators adopt the report of the Portfolio Committee on the Deputy Prime Minister's Office 2024-2025 Annual Performance Report and Budget Estimates, highlighted the successes of the Deputy Prime Minister's Office, including the construction of houses for vulnerable Emaswati, the establishment of the Family Unification Program, and efforts to ensure that children are well taken care of. Prince Mpatwa also stated that men involved with one woman will be required to pay child maintenance. Senators then raised concerns about the type of nation that will emerge if it was said that many individuals should be involved in the maintenance of a child, and questioned what kind of women the nation will have as a result.
Tihibe asikabi nato nasasebenta tiko la DPM
labo sisi bethu noma labantu bethu lo khanza lokuthi ubekuse ngendlela ukuthi sekunebantu abaningi labahambela indlela lokuthi Madam President kube sekuthiwa wonke lohambela indlela kumele afake isandla. Angicele nje kuuva lokuthi ingabe live sithi aliyephi nasisho kanje
akusho ngo DPM ukuthi akube kanje. It's a obtaining situation on the ground.
Senator Prince Mpatwa clarified that the intention was not to frustrate anyone, but to encourage responsibility in light of the challenges observed in the past. Feswatini TV News on Domlangeni, Themba Shabango, Smuva Shongwe, Parliament.
Her Royal Highness Senator Princess Demaswati says that the Ministry of Home Affairs is halfway through covering all 4 regions with its mopping exercise. Her Royal Highness says that the ministry aims to eradicate statelessness, and she made these remarks when moving that Senate adopts the report of the Portfolio Committee of the Ministry of Home Affairs on the debate that is regarding the ministry's 2024-2025 Annual Performance Report.
While moving to adopt the report of the Minister of Home Affairs, Senator Her Royal Highness Princess Temaswati says that despite transportation challenges, the Minister of Home Affairs has successfully registered people across all regions.
Basibikela ngokusebenza kwabo kwalomnyaka lesibuya kuwo. Kwaba nemsebenzi lomuhle we-mopping exercise. La khona babuka kubhalisa khona onke emaswati lo khanzakala ukuthi akazange khona kubhaliseka.
Her Royal Highness says that the ministry has worked well with other relevant UN organizations in accommodating refugees who arrived in the country. Senator Her Royal Highness says that most of the refugees were not from Mozambique. Her Royal Highness further commended their majesties for affording women a holiday and for the generous gifts given to women during Bukanu ceremony. Senator Princess Ntombiyenkosi expressed concerns over the rising number of divorces in the country.
Kunalokudivosa lesithi asikuthandi sisive semaswati bese sekunaloko ukuthi cha singehlukana ngekuthi mhlawumbe nawe sohlalele nalomnya ahlalele sakubuka ukuthi kuyinto lengcono ngoba kuneke ukuthi ukhanze ukuthi abantu sebabulelene ngoba nakhona kuya contribute ukuthi awuhlala nemuntu uthi uhlelele abantu abakho kanzi sohlalele kufa.
Sibona kuboshwa kuyanza kuleli tiko lokuthiwa ungathi kuneganga labagangile bayaboshwa. Sibathe siyabuka nje sibathe siyavuka siphokubona ukuthi ngathi khona lababoshwako. Iyakhuthatana leli tiko leli lokuphoka sibona ungathi sekukhona lo sokungathi kufaka lijele.
Senator Princess Ngenge also praised their majesties for granting women a holiday and highlighted that it was encouraging to see officers from the Ministry of Home Affairs held accountable by the law.
Ngasho nje ukuthi kusese kubete umthetho lokho.
Her Royal Highness Princess Temaswati stated that she was not in a position to comment further on the matter as it is still under investigation. For Eswatini TV News, Sondomlangeni, Themba Shabangu, Smuva Shongwe, Parliament.
The Ministry of ICT and stakeholders held a validation workshop for the Eswatini National Chapter on Women in Science, Engineering and Technology. The workshop looked at the inclusion of women and girls in STEM fields, and Director of Research, Science, Technology and Innovation at the Ministry, Dr. Rejoice Masego, says Eswatini is amongst countries that are in the forefront in the implementation of programs that encourage women to take up STEM.
Director of Research, Science, Technology and Innovation in the Ministry of ICT, Dr. Rejoice Masego, says the aim of this initiative is to create a platform for implementing programs and projects that encourage women's active participation in fields of science, technology, engineering, and math.
To address the problem shortage yabomake uhulumende asekasukume coordinate lama activities lendiwa ma organizations la ngwano yathi kunafaweswa uyathi kuna WIMENG and umsebenzi lomhle kakhulu.
Masego says these are government's efforts to match international standards, hence the growing interest in involving women in science, technology and innovation for socio-economic development. The president for Eswatini National Chapter on Women in Science, Engineering and Technology, Professor Nonhlanhla Sukati, encourages girls and women to take up STEM subjects. Sukati says this can harness their potential to drive the economy towards a knowledge-based future.
One of the things we should go against lama beliefs as society would see science or STEM is not for women. There is no brain for a man, there is no brain for a woman. We all have lobes, women should just tell themselves, we are all equally capable of tapping in. In fact, I usually say women are even at a better position. When emadoda asheshe advube ahambe. So for us as women, we should encourage girls not to run away from STEM.
This initiative aligns with the Southern African Development Community, SADC Charter for Women in Science, Engineering and Technology. And Eswatini is amongst the countries that ratified this charter in 2018. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I am Satabule Mamba, together with Sondomlangeni, Izuluini.
The Army Day preparations are now in their final stages. Umbutho Eswatini Defence Force Director of Communications, Colonel Thando Dlamini, says the Defence Force will be showcasing some of its skills and the type of work that it does. Dlamini made these remarks during the final rehearsal at Nogwane.
It's all systems go for the 2025 Army Day, as the Eswatini Umbutho Defence Force will be displaying most of their skills. The Director of Communications, Thando Dlamini, says that the long-awaited day is set for Friday.
So vele sibhekile ukuthi bantu batabe banyathelana la futhi ke sicela kube nale nhlonipho lesihlale sicela mnyaka wonke bantu sibheke ukuthi at 08:45 hours sebaqalile bayangena la etikhathi ke ngoba iprogram yasho ukuthi emacourses babhekile ukuthi abike lana 10:30 noma kuya 1100 hours.
Where their majesties will grace this special event. On this day, people will witness more of what was displayed in the regional shows as the Umbutho Defence Force returns to the people. Dlamini urged Emaswati to exercise respect and be punctual, as once their majesties arrive, they will be limited to no movement. For Eswatini TV News, Sondomlangeni, Nogwane.
With a lack of employment opportunities in the country, young people from different backgrounds are using their skills to earn a living. This was evident at the library in Mbabane, where the Handicrafts Department in the Ministry of Commerce and Trade organized an exhibition to give artists a platform to showcase their handmade work.
Although Eswatini has a high youth unemployment rate, some are taking advantage of their skills to sustain themselves. Some young people were found at the Mbabane Library on Tuesday exhibiting their work in ceramics, woodwork, and other arts. Musawenkosi Dlamini, a talented artist, shares that despite holding a certificate, her employment contract was terminated. She says this led to her exploring her artistic abilities as a means of survival. She says everyone has to start somewhere, using what they have to earn themselves a living in these tough economic times. Sibusisiwe Kamete, also a craftswoman, revealed that her passion for handwork started at a young age.
Up until now, kakhulu ekutiphiliseni kwami ngetemakhono ule handcraft.
She explains that over time, her crafting skills have opened up opportunities for her to grow professionally and financially. Sibusiso Makakula from the Handcraft Department under the Ministry of Commerce highlights that while the handcraft industry in the country is still developing, it is important for artisans to register their work.
Sizama kwenda initiative yokuthi bonke labenda iartwork baphume emakhaya babuye bathi umsebenza kanye nathi. Sithe last wendela ukuthi nakwendekile banenhlanhla labanye bayathengelwa.
He says this will ensure that their products are well marketed and receive the recognition they deserve. Makakula assures artisans that the ministry is working on frameworks that will ensure adherence to copyright regulations, as fine artists try to take advantage of existing trade agreements. Despite their hard work, these young entrepreneurs express concern over how some retail stores take advantage of their crafts. They shared that some stores buy their products at low prices and then resell them at a higher rate for maximum profit. Reporting, I am Notele Sitole, Mbendulo Kumbi, Mbabane.
The Eswatini Institute of Waste Management held a seminar aimed at evaluating programs that encourage proper waste management. They call it the Eswatini Waste Management and Circular Economy Seminar. Different stakeholders were part of this seminar, including the International Solid Waste Association African Region Chapter and the Eswatini Environmental Authority, to mention a few.
The two-day seminar is under the theme Enhancing Sustainable Waste Management Practices. Chairperson of the International Solid Waste Association African Region Charter, Mbendulo Kininza, says Emaswati should learn on new innovative ways to manage waste.
Namuhla ke besibuka kuStive la kangwane lingenta kanjani ukuze limanage i-waste yalo kahle liphindze futhi licale manje lingathuthuki ngokuthi lithenge bese liyalahla.
Kininza says today they are looking at how Eswatini can manage waste in accordance to stipulated standards. She says people should be encouraged to buy to reuse so that some people are employed through programs of waste management. The speaker from the University of Cape Town, Professor Dennis Kalumba, encourages Emaswati to separate their waste when throwing it out.
Waste can become a resource if we separate it from the source. As soon as we begin mixing it, then it can easily become a very dangerous material, a hazard. So if we can be able to separate it from the source, and that's something which Eswatini could learn. What do I mean by separating it? Now, for instance, separating organics from the rest of the material. And we say from the rest of materials, I could separate and remove plastics. These plastics could be recycled.
Director, Environmental Assessment and Compliance, EEA, Mkolisi Mapanga says, waste has a huge potential to make money. In the seminar, they also learned on how other countries manage their waste.
So kuyadingeka ukuthi sibe nale behavior change. Siyadinga phindze ukuthi sibuke thina imithetho ngesilungu bathi le enabling.
Mapanga says people should have behavior change when they dispose of waste, and the government should also pass laws that will encourage better waste management. For example, having legislation that will pay individuals if they recycle. Some of the legislations adopted by the Kingdom of Eswatini in managing waste are the National Environment Management Act, together with the Local Government Act, to mention a few. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Setable Mamba, together with Mbendulo Kumbi in Matapa.
Media practitioners from across the country gathered for a broadcasting capacity building hosted by the Eswatini Communications Commission. The participants, who represented various media houses, expressed that social media plays a crucial role in their ability to analyze and critically assess all the messages that they deliver to the audience.
When it comes to ethics or umgomo walomkhakha wetekuchumana umkhakha wetemtsathelo umlandzela njani ngaso sonke isikhathi.
Sinebele ukuthi basibiza ukuthi mhlambe ke imfuyo lekakhulu si nasacala zingehlele ngilezingene ngemfufo.
Singakhona ukubika noma kukwatisa eMaswati ngendlela labatawukhona ukuva ngawo futhi nabo bakhona ekusitakala ngabo.
Siyabona ukuthi okay umlaleli asimshiyi ngemuva noma ngabe senda in sikhumbule ukuthi kunemlaleli ekhaya. Broadcasters acknowledge that social media has both advantages and challenges that impact their work. During the workshop, they reflected on the power of communication platforms in shaping public perception. News editor Mavenu Kwebu from the Eswatini Broadcasting and Information Services highlighted the importance of ensuring that media professionals can distinguish between facts and misinformation before publishing any story.
Ku-media nyalo kungene kakhulu i-social media lesiyabanga lokuthi netinsatheli nato letingathi ti-traditional titikhanze tine-pressure yokuthi tifuna kubamba le pace leyenteka ngale social media.
He stresses that accurate reporting is a responsibility that every media practitioner must take seriously, especially in an era where fake news can spread rapidly through digital platforms. He says one of the most crucial skills a journalist must have is the ability to verify information before it is broadcast. Eswatini TV Marketing and Communications Manager Namcebo Mpamali says beyond just reporting news, media professionals need to embrace changes in the industry, including technological advancements, digital marketing strategies, and new ways to engage audiences effectively.
We know when you're talking broadcasting, it is one industry that is evolving every day, and we need to catch up with the current trends that are taking place, internationally. Domestically, we need to be able to be seen. We are delivering proper content. We are making sure we know our story, and as far as broadcasting is concerned.
Mpamali says the discussions revealed that social media platforms can be a double-edged sword used to disseminate critical information, raise awareness on social issues, and hold authorities accountable, but at the same time, they can also be misused to spread misinformation or sensationalize content. Reporting, I am Natsele Sitole with Themba Shabangu, Mbabane.
International news. An Israeli airstrike killed a journalist working with Al Jazeera on Monday, and the military issued fresh calls to evacuate parts of Gaza's north as Israel pressed its renewed bombardment and ground operations in the Palestinian territory. Viewer discretion is advised on the following story.
9-year-old Noran bears injuries from an Israeli strike, but the physical pain pales in comparison to her grief. The Palestinian health authorities say dozens of people have been killed in the latest day of Israeli strikes, including multiple members of the same families, the little ones buried alongside the grown-ups. Among the victims of bombardments across Gaza were 2 journalists killed separately on Monday. They were Mohammed Mansour and Al Jazeera contributor Hussam Shabat.
He was directly targeted in the northern Gaza Strip after dedicating himself to journalistic work.
Ismail Barhoum, a member of Hamas's political bureau, was killed in a strike on the southern city of Khan Yunis on Sunday. The attack that targeted him was on Nasser Hospital, one of the few still operating facilities in Gaza's devastated healthcare system. The day after, medical staff are picking through the rubble.
The men's surgery department was targeted by the Israeli occupation and destroyed entirely with guided missiles, as if they wanted to destroy the health system, because it is considered the last breath of the Palestinian people.
In central Gaza, a strike on Al-Maghasi refugee camp destroyed an ambulance repair yard.
These are the only civil defense ambulances in the central province. Now they're completely gone. We are left without any equipment.
As Gazans reel from the wave of bombardments, work is underway to try and repair the broken ceasefire. Egypt has introduced a proposal for a new release of hostages from Gaza in exchange for the freeing of Palestinian prisoners, the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza, and a pause in the fighting.
The USA said on Tuesday that it had secured separate agreements with Ukraine and Russia to ensure safe navigation in the Black Sea and to ban strikes against their respective energy facilities. Now, Ukraine has called for more talks to settle for details and have warned that the movement of Russian warships would violate the deal.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky described it as a step in the right direction. But after the White House announced that both Russia and Ukraine had agreed to a maritime ceasefire, residents of the city known as the Pearl of the Black Sea, Odessa, said they feared the agreement would prove unstable.
The Russians never keep their word. All these deals will not be in Ukraine's favor.
On Monday, a Russian missile strike injured 88 people, including 17 children, in Sumy in North Ukraine. In the capital, Kiev, many are convinced that attacks like these will continue despite the agreement, which also bans strikes on energy infrastructure.
I mean, yeah, conceptually it's totally not the attack on the infrastructure, military objects whatsoever, but on the other hand, there's still the attacks on the civilians, on the peaceful citizens, and of course it cannot be perceived in any way as a one step to peace as the concept.
The Americans show their true faces. Nobody believes them. We are waiting for Europe to finally unite and understand that it is all about unity.
President Zelensky expressed hope that the Black Sea ceasefire would take effect immediately. As for the strikes on infrastructure, both countries agreed to pause attacks for 30 days starting on March 18th. For many, lasting peace remains a distant hope.
In our sports news, His Majesty King Mswati III has blessed the 6th of April as the date for the finals of this year's Ingwenyama Cup. This message was delivered by the chairman of the tournament, His Royal Highness Prince Hlangabeza, in a media briefing at Nkhanini.
Ingwenyama, imbube yemhlaba,
Mswati wesithathu bengunene uthuma libandla ukuthi uthumela ibandla ukuthi alibikele tikhulu libikele umhlaba wonke wakangwane.
His Majesty King Mswati III has blessed the 6th of April this year as the date for the finals of this year's Ngonyama Cup to be held at the National Stadium, Somhloro. Announcing the date was the chairman of the Ngonyama Cup, His Royal Highness Prince Tlangabeza, who says that all members of the public and eMaswati at large have been invited to be part of the special occasion on the 6th of April this year.
Mfana Nkosi sithanda nje kubonga kakhulu nalisuku lwanamuhla lapho khona besingahlangana khona.
Both the Chief Executive Officer of Ngaphetero MV Fund, David Mieni, and Premier League of Eswatini Chairperson Polycarp Dlamini both emphasize on the importance of the finals by also mentioning that it will cost only 50 emarangeni to watch the entire day of the finals. The main final will see Royal Leopard taking on Monene Pirates. For Eswatini TV Sports, Fabrice Msonera, Mpabane.
That is how we cap off our English news. We'll go for a net break. We talk to Eswatini Investment Promotion Authority, Masmuya.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.sz. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba research bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kumula.
Nathi kufuna sente ukukhiqiza lokusemndeni.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds, full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
Welcome back to the program. You're still watching Kusile Breakfast Show. This is the Wednesday edition. Now, Eswatini is setting the stage for a bold economic transformation that is launching a high-stakes investment drive that aims to propel the country to 12%. That is the annual growth by 2029. But with regional competition heating up, can the kingdom truly position itself as the ultimate investment destination in Southern Africa? What are some of the policies, the projects, and the incentives that are on the table to turn this vision into reality? Joining me to break it all down, Mr. Martin Masilela is the Executive Investment Promotion Manager at the Eswatini Investment Promotion Authority. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the program, Vunganze.
Thank you.
It's an interesting conversation indeed. Maybe let's start by looking at the conference, just to give it a bit of context. It has been positioned as a game changer for Eswatini's investment landscape. You know, what are some of the specific outcomes that you are targeting here, as well as, you know, what would success look like for you when the curtain falls on the 15th of May?
Thank you very much for having me. So basically, we are hosting the Eswatini Investment Conference. It's an inaugural conference. And it's the first of its kind, that we basically seek to see how we can significantly contribute to the economic transformation. Maybe just to give you a bit of a background, you will recall that 2023 there was a SBIA, and if you look at the gist of most of the submissions, they were centered around creating economic opportunities, ensuring that there's jobs, ensuring that there's inflow of investments, and we also stimulate domestic investments. And this is where the government has actually mandated us through the Ministry of Commerce, obviously, to actually host, and not just host an investment conference, but to make sure that we put in place some strategies and policies to make the environment more conducive and more enabling. If you recall the government program of action 2023-2028, the first item that is in that program is about attracting mega investments and stimulating enabling business environment. So as part of actualizing that or implementing that, we're actually hosting the inaugural investment conference 2025, which basically seeks to bring together investors from across the globe, including Eswatini. We've already done a lot of background work. I think you might have seen that last week, His Excellency, the Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Prime Minister, officially launched the conference, marking the official beginning of the preparatory activities. Of course, there's been quite a lot of work that has been done on the background. Coming back to your question, our outcomes for the investment conference, it's basically we are looking forward to first position Eswatini to the eye of the global investor. Right. Remember that we'll have a mix of investors coming from Eswatini, the African continent, as well as abroad. For that, we've already engaged with our embassies that are actively, marketing the conference abroad, because I mean we've got very limited resources to do that. So we want to position Eswatini as the preferred investment destination of choice within Southern Africa. We know that we are within a competitive space. Countries are actively promoting themselves. So we also want to put Eswatini in the mind of the investor that is actually thinking of putting money into Eswatini. Number two, we also want to announce certain strategic projects. Last year, we had a team of ministers that was assigned by Cabinet to screen some projects, both new projects as well as those that are expanding. So the idea is that we need to select strategic high-impact projects that we're going to announce during the conference. So as part of the conference, there will be some pledges or rather announcements of strategic projects that will catalyze our economic transformation. We believe that if we put our energies together into those projects and the new ones that are coming in, we might probably see the aspirations of government to achieve double-digit economic growth. If you recall that His Excellency set a high target of 12% growth per annum by 2029.
Yeah, you know, I love the theme because the theme speaks exactly to what you are speaking about, of course, reflecting even some of the Sibaya submissions. And yes, that is the primary urgent priority right now in the Kingdom of Eswatini, young as it is, with juxtaposed with the high unemployment rate, youth unemployment rate. That calls for urgency. Shorty, and I'm happy that you are awake to the fact that so many countries are becoming very competitive and are inviting a lot of investment. I was listening to President Boko in Botswana just last week, speaking to the very same idea that Botswana is ready and it's safe for investment. And I'm glad that, we're putting our best foot forward ourselves. But President Boko also specifically articulated the sectors which, they are looking at in terms of, the immediate economic transformation, of course, the digital economy as it is right now amongst those high priority areas. I wonder, with the theme creating opportunities for rapid economic transformation, suggesting that urgency, what are some of the key sectors that Eswatini sees the most immediate potential for high impact investors in Eswatini?
Yeah. You'll recall that every time a new government comes in, they basically, from the National Development Plan, they basically identify their sectors of focus, right, of course, based on expert advice. So currently, we've got the 6 sectors that were identified. We know that there's currently a consultant that is working on looking at new strategic growth sectors. But currently, we're basically using the 6 blueprint sectors, if I may call them. Manufacturing is a sector that we've got a competitive advantage. If you look at, if you compare our manufacturing space, or rather manufacturing as a percentage of GDP, we are one of the highest in actually Southern Africa. Agriculture and agro-processing is also one. I mean, you're talking about the upcoming projects like Mbageni. For that one, for instance, we host a lot of textile companies that are importing billions and billions of textile raw materials. So we are saying, let's look at strategically looking at new products like your cotton. Let's grow the cotton here. Let's have the spinning mill here. So that we can actually substitute the imports from those textile. I mean, the last time we checked our statistics, we are importing more than 3.5 billion worth of textile goods. So if we are putting those projects in place like the MNOP, the Mkhondvo Ngwavuma Water Augmentation Project, we believe that we can actually leverage our cotton cultivation and then processing it into fabric. So agriculture and agribusiness is the second one. Mining and energy. You'll recall that there's been a lot of talk around mining and energy.
Absolutely.
And there's quite a lot of move towards renewable energy. Currently, through the renewable energy procurement program that is driven by ESERA, there's quite a number of projects that have already been outlined. Some of them, they're already in the ground in terms of preparatory work. Of course, some of them, you will notice that they are partly funded by government through its institution. So energy, it's just one, is number 3. Of course, it has been paired with mining. You'll recall that in the last 2 years, I think, the government has issued more mining licenses than ever. So we're seeing a lot of activity coming up from the mining sector, like you call, but also to indicate that there was an electromagnetic study that was actually done to look at more minerals, or rather more mineral occurrences in the country. We believe that that report will also give us some guidance as to what do we have that we didn't know before, that we have, that we can actually unlock value through strategic minerals. And then ICT is also one of them. I mean, ICT is an enabler of business. You cannot do business without bringing into the picture the issues of an enabling business environment supported by ICT. Of course, we do have some shortcomings with respect to our speed, the cost of data, and all those types of things, which are currently being addressed. But we believe that we can be that hub that provides a lot of ICT services, so we can host probably global companies that are looking at probably opening a branch to service the Southern African continent. In short, those are the main sectors that we are basically looking at. And these will be our main core sectors to focus on in the economy.
All right, so let me see how smart I am. I used to have a great memory when I was growing up. Manufacturing, agro-processing, agriculture, energy,
and mining.
Mining I mean, energy is broad, but mining, amongst the core areas right now. And of course, we saw what was happening in Magomba recently. But also, you speak of ICT as an enabler. Very, very key developments we've been seeing recently. Is that in particular order?
No, it's not. Actually, I wanted to add another one. So tourism is also one sector that we're actually looking at. I mean, if you look at just yesterday, we were with another institution called ITC, International Trade Center, meeting the tourism stakeholders. We want to make sure that we fully utilize some of the inherent advantages that we have, more particularly within the cultural space to ensure that we drive the tourism industry. Of course, we do want to have strategic investors that are investing within the tourism industry. And the coming in of big brands like your Palazzo and Havingbo Hilton gives us that advantage to say something is happening there. I just need to go and explore.
Absolutely.
And that's what we basically are looking forward to.
I wonder what kind of investment approach, what it would look like with regards to our culture in particular, because there seems to be a sense of a very indigenous and unique sort of identity there. I wonder how you guys, but I know you're having conversations around even maximizing our culture with investment, but I wonder what that will look like. But excited to see how that unfolds. But I want us to be frank about something as we compare Eswatini to developed nations like South Africa, who are our competitors. If we're being frank, what is our unique value proposition that makes us the smarter bet when it comes to investment? They're right here. They're next to us.
That's a very interesting one. You must recall that each country has its own, like I've said, inherent advantages.
Absolutely.
I think for us, it's the fact that it's our workforce, the agility of our workforce. And this is coming from the industry. It's not just, heresy, but it's something that is coming from the industry, comparing the productivity of our people, more particularly in sectors that I will say requires a lot of human input. The productivity level is high, the trainability of our workforce. And that is basically what is putting us, at high. I was looking at a study the other time. They were comparing lost man days due to industrial actions between different Southern African countries. We still have very low lost man day hours, productive man day hours. So that one, it gives us a bit of an advantage compared to other countries. The other thing, of course, is our peace. I think you cannot, everyone wants to do business in a very peaceful environment. Look at what has been happening in our neighbor, Mozambique. We are not, gloating or rather, amplifying that disadvantage, but we are saying, let's take advantage of some of the opportunities that are created by what is happening around our neighbors.
Sure.
And let's utilize it to create value for our economy.
Sure. I got a job during the COVID-19 pandemic, and I wouldn't ever wish COVID-19 for anyone, but it presented me a job. And so I really, really understand your assertion there. I hear that, you are banking on our sovereignty. You are banking on the strategic location of the Kingdom of Eswatini, the trade agreements that are in place, and Eswatini is a business-ready environment, all these things that you are mentioning. But investors don't just look at the opportunity.
Yeah.
They also look at risk.
Yeah.
And I'm not the kind of journalist that wants to sit here and paint everything as gold, because, then we risk the peril of not really tapping into a conversation that allows us to look at other opportunities that are presented. What are some of the biggest concerns that potential investors raise about Eswatini, and how are you addressing them?
Well, one, I would say probably the key one is the fact that we're a small market size economy. But when we define ourselves in the context of a market, we look at the market configurations that we have, like BOSACO. We consider SACO in our promotion term a domestic market, because there's no duties between us and the other SACO countries. So we have to flag that value proposition to a potential investor.
Sure.
Number two, and of course, in terms of energy and power, we are heavily reliant on South Africa. And most often times you hear that conversation, what if South Africa is going to switch that button off? But that is not possible. I mean, everything is actually governed by agreements. And if you recall, EEC did give us some assurances that they've now working on extending. And this is where we're actually saying, let's look at what we can substitute in terms of import. Let's produce our own. Let's move towards an energy-sufficient economy.
Right.
The other thing that probably they've flagged, it's the delays, bureaucratic delays. You talk about permits and, papers, the approval formalities of doing business. So government is establishing the one-stop shop concept. We are at advanced stages. In fact, next week we'll be doing the validation of that report.
Okay.
So what essentially we are trying to do is that we want to cut the time it takes for you to establish a company. We want to eliminate the duplication of documents, because sometimes you find that you go to this door, they require the same document. You go to this door, they require the same document. So we want to eliminate the duplication. And then number three, we want to reduce the cost it takes. And this is informed by the some indicators which used to be called the World Bank Ease of Doing Business. Now they've changed into Business or Be Ready Index. That basically traces how effectively are you facilitating the entry of investors into your economy. So the one-stop shop will basically address those pain points for investors so that they can find all the approval formalities under one roof. They don't have to go from one door to another. And we believe that with the support of government, through the Ministry of Commerce, we're going to implement it in the first quarter of 2025-2026 financial year.
This is interesting. And, I think also it's going to address, and this is going to be my question for you, it's going to address, you speak about some of the bureaucratic delays that are inherent right now, and they impede a lot of, how fast we realize all these remarkable ambitions. The biggest conversation in the ICT ministry, at least from, some of the foot soldiers, has been, they feel like there's been a lack of agile policy frameworks, and that they are a little bit archaic, so to speak, and therefore they don't allow really inter-institutional collaboration, so to speak. And we have heard the Prime Minister, he has been very clear himself regarding government pushing for major policy shifts in making investing in Eswatini smoother and more attractive. Are there going to be any announcements at this conference regarding, some potential reviews of policies and making them agile going forward, because the landscape is ever changing?
So we've been working on an investment policy. So from between 2027 and now, between 2017, 2017 and now, we have had a gap in terms of investment policy. So there's been a vacuum.
8 years.
The last policy expired in 2017. 2017, 2017.
7 couple of months,
So that has created a complex environment with respect to the rules of engagement, with respect to the strategic focus of government. And we have actually taken it upon ourselves, of course, through the support of the ministry, to request some funding, which we got in 2023, to start developing an investment policy.
Yeah.
Right now, as I speak, it has gone through the validation process. It's just waiting for cabinet approval. The plan is that it will be announced during the conference.
Okay.
So that policy basically gives some precedence with respect to investment environment, with respect to incentives, with respect to sustainable investment, not just investment, but sustainable investments.
Important.
So it basically creates environment that is more transparent, that is more predictable to an investor. So it will be announced during the conference. Added to that, we are also reviewing our investment, the Swaziland Investment Promotion Act of 1998. So yeah, that's how far we're coming. So that one is actually it's almost getting into the bill stage.
Okay.
So you recall that during the speech from the throne, His Majesty announced that IPA will be transformed into an economic development agency.
Yes.
What that means that there will be an expansion in terms of mandate, in terms of our mandate, but also it must be backed up by legislation. So there is an investment and trade promotion bill that is being drafted, and that will also back up the issues of investor protection, issues that have to do with, you recall that South Africa recently has been the subject of, the international eyes with respect to issues of expropriation, with compensation or without compensation. So with this bill, we want to make it clear that under what circumstances can we expropriate with accompanying compensation measures. So we want the investor, when they read our bill or our act, then to actually understand that we're a more predictable, more transparent, economy to do
no
business in.
ambiguity.
Yeah. No ambiguity.
But I wonder if there's ambiguity in South Africa. Or it's anyway, that's a conversation for another day, and perhaps you speak about investor protection.
Yeah.
We have seen the rigorous drive. We've seen the Minister for Commerce, Industry and Trade, I think from 2 years ago, even, trips with His Majesty the King, talking to investors, particularly in the US, in the Middle East and some in Europe. I wonder, where the biggest appetite has been coming from right now. Is it Asia? Is it the Middle East? Is it the US? Where is it coming from, the biggest appetite?
South Africa remains our prime investment or investor source, if I may use that language. But like I've told you in the beginning, that we are working with the embassies. We have seen an elevated push from the embassies to bring in investors. Just yesterday, in fact, as I speak today, we've got a delegation that is coming from Slovakia, that is in the country exploring investment opportunities. So Europe, there's been a number of delegations coming from Europe as well as Eastern Europe. South Africa remains our main investment source. So there's been a number of missions coming from South Africa. Of course, Taiwan predominantly, through our diplomatic ties with the Taiwan Republic of China and Taiwan.
Is there a new strong interest, that we haven't been really familiar with? Because yes, South Africa remains our strong source. Taiwan has been a very good friend of ours. Is there like a new strong interest? I mean, I could argue the Middle East. We've made some interesting partnerships there.
Yeah. Well, the fact is that we've hosted some delegations coming from mainly the areas where His Majesty has set foot.
Right.
But in terms of advancing in terms of readiness, if I were to look at the state of readiness, I would say it's still at preliminary stages.
Okay.
So we're still, trying to collate information from different sectors. You will understand that, for instance, any interest in the mining sector tends to drag a bit with respect to getting all the licensing and the approval formalities. Yeah. But that does not kill the interest. in as far as the investment is concerned, but it does, give a little bit of, a little bit of hesitation.
Right.
More especially if it's within, the bureaucratic system that we normally experience. But yeah, we are optimistic that from all the international missions that we have actually conducted, and His Majesty has conducted, we will definitely have some value.
Mr. Masalela, it's been a pleasure having you on the program. A lot has been
so
discussed, and I'm afraid our time has run out, but I did want to understand if there are any big ticket, investment deals that are announced at the conference. Just one, if there will be. Big ticket.
We are looking at announcing some expansions. It's local expansion in the sugar industry. We're talking about more than 5 billion.
Okay, I just wanted to break news. Thank you. Breaking news, there it is. Mr. Masalela is Martin. He's the Executive Investment Promotion Manager at the Eswatini Investment Promotion Authority. Thank you for staying with us on the program. See you at 3 p.m. At 2 p.m., I beg your pardon, at when we host Nedbank Business Watch. Thank you. Have a good day.